So let's continue now with part 2. And last time we spoke about around midnight. This is part 2 of 3. We spoke about setting your intention, what type of sound you're after, and experimented with reharmonizing the default chords and don't play the chords as written. And also how you're going to play the chords, right? That's important. And we spoke about applying chord splitting. In this case, it was this part here. Or up here. And also triplet chord splitting, where you play triplets. And I gave you some exercises on that, and I hope you did them, because today we're going to continue with some more tips and tricks and more exercises. So first of all, let me just play for you from the start to where we are at now, and then we'll continue. So that's how far we have gotten, and let's now move on to bar number 6, which is the E flat minor 7 to A flat 7. And let me play for you the clip one more time, the last part, and then you can ask yourself what is going on there. So, what was going on there? I'm going to speak about a couple of voicings that I was using there, right? A voicing is a particular way to play a chord, and one of my methods is to teach people voicings so that they can apply them anywhere on the keyboard on the fly. This particular voicing is an E flat minor 7 that I like. It contains 11, 7, and 9. So you play a 1, and 10, and 11, and 7, and 9. By the way, for you who are in the jazz piano step, of course, we go through this in great detail in jazz lesson 17. Now, let's speak about the other one, which I also play. This now is an A flat 13 with a sharp 11. So, what you do is you play an A flat, and then you play the 7th, and then you can play a B flat triad on top of that. So now this is a 9, and then this one is our sharp 11, and this one is the 13. Hence, it's A flat 13, sharp 11. You can also see it as a B flat over A flat 7, but you don't need to play the third of the A flat 7, and that depends on how dark you want it to sound. So in this case, if you want, you can play it like this: 1, 3, 7, and 9, sharp 11, and 13. But as I said, you can just omit the third if it's too dark. So now let's speak about how to practice this voicing, and this was very confusing to me when I started to play jazz piano, and the method I'm about to show you now is something that I invented myself, and I applied it myself, and it's been super helpful. It's also something I'm using in the jazz piano steps, of course, if you're interested in that. And the reason why you want to do that is that it's going to be an eye-opener if you do it properly, and the reason is that it gives you understanding, because now you break down the harmony in a way where you understand the complex chords. So you also recognize the various chords and voicings, because you'll hear these voicings over and over and over, so you recognize the sound of the chord or voicing, right? And once you have this sound in your head, you can easily apply it anywhere to any tune that you like. So that's why I like this method so much. So how do you do it? Let's now use one voicing as an example. So let's have a look at the A flat 13 with a sharp 11, for example, right? What you do is that you practice that up and down chromatically. If I now transpose this up, so that was the chord, right? This is the chord. If I transpose it up to C, so you can easier C, right? Now you play a C and B flat, and then you play the 9 and sharp 11 and 13, right? And the first step then now is to practice this up and down chromatically. By the way, now you can also add the third, right? Because it's not that dark. I wouldn't do it down here because it sounds far too dark. Up here, it's fine. So what you do is that you practice this up and down chromatically. All the way up here, right? and then you go all the way back. And then the next step is to do it through the whole tone scale, or whole tone steps, right? So the whole tone scale, that's the scale. What you do is that you practice the same chord up and down through that scale, right? But we have 2 whole tone scales, right? So you also got to start from a whole step above. So now you do the same. And then you practice through the circle of fifths. So you start on C and go up to F, and then down to B flat, and then so on and so forth. So now the idea is that you should automate this as much as possible, so you know it well in your fingers. You don't even have to think about it. But what I was saying is that once you are working on this for a long time, then you have this sound in your head, right? So then you can apply the sound whenever you like. That's what I like about this method. You can also do it between the chords. For example, from the C minor 11 to the F13 with a sharp 11, you can do it like this. It's basically the same principles, but now you're doing it between the various chords. And what is super important now is that you're also going to apply the various voicings to various tunes that you're working on. For example, if you are learning this voicing to this voicing, right? Now, there are plenty of tunes that you could play that on. For example, all right, let's move on now and speak about the bars 7 and 8. And this is where you play the B7 to B flat 7 in the end. Let me play for you a little clip of how I played. When I play the melody now, it changed significantly from the original, and that was done on purpose, and it's different each time. And it's improvised. The ending chord is what I will speak about right now, because the ending chord was quite dark and quite dissonant, and that was also done on purpose. And the reason why I wanted to add this ending chord here is actually that I'd like to keep it a little bit dark. That was my intention with this tune, the way I would like to present this tune. So that was the darkest chord. This is a little bit ghosty chord. That's why it's a ghost emoji here, because to me it's a little bit dark, and sounds like you could play that chord on Halloween to scare somebody. It's a little bit dark and dissonant, but I like it in this scenario. So let me break it down for you what it is. The way I see it is that I play a B flat 7, because that's the chord here, right? B flat 7. Simple B flat 7 without a fifth. And then you add a sharp 11, and then you add a flat 9, and then you don't play the B flat or the 7 at all, you just skip that as well. So now you just play the B flat, and then you add the flat 9 and the sharp 11, the same chord basically, right? If you play it down here, it sounds pretty awkward and dark and strange in many ways, I think. Oh yeah, and by the way, you could also add a 13 to this voicing if you like. So you play the same thing, but now you also add the 13. Like that. What's the point of playing this chord? It sounds really horrible, and I think it sounds horrible as well, but I think it's also sounding very cool if you play it in the right context. So that's what I did now in the next part, where I added a hidden bar. The B flat 7 I played, right? And then there are some question marks because at this point I just added an extra bar or extra few seconds because this is rubato, right? So let's listen to that briefly. So what I did now was to apply the darkest chord, which I call it, right? This is just a nickname for the chord, right? Because it's the darkest chord, and I applied it and I moved it around on the keyboard. Let's listen to just that part one more time. So, did you notice how I play the chords? One thing is which chords I was playing, right? But how did I play them? That's another question, but that's very important as well. Because a lot of people are skipping that part. I believe it's really important to be aware of what kind of chords you're playing, how you play them. Most of them I was playing as BAM chords, and some I was playing BLAM chords. And of course, this is just an analogy. It's my terminology, right? So a BLAM chord is when you play like that, you're rolling out the chords, and a BAM chord is when you play like this. Just play all the notes simultaneously. We spoke about that the last time as well, but by default I see that a lot of my students, they are unintentionally playing like this all the time. Which can be fine as an effect, but it's not something that you should do by default. That's just an effect that you can add. I was doing that for many years myself, so if you're doing that, I suggest that you try to listen to how you're playing and change that. Anyway, what is going on? This trick is based on the diminished scale, and this is, of course, now I'm going to speak about which chords I was playing and how you can apply that as well to your music, right? Step 1 is to learn the diminished scale, and there are only 3 of them, so if you don't know them, it's about time to get to know the diminished scale, because that is one of the most important scales to know if you want to play jazz piano. So this is the diminished scale, and this is the A flat diminished scale, but it's starting from B flat. That's the scale, and this is the A flat diminished scale, because it starts with a whole step, and then a half step, a whole step, half step, and so on and so forth. But I like to think of it, when I'm playing any dominant 7th chord, I like to start on a half step, and then a whole step, and a half step, whole step, half step, and so on and so forth. It's every other, right? So if the chord is B flat 7, I like to play a half step, and then a whole step, and so on and so forth, right? That scale is highly useful, again, so this is a scale that I believe is one of the most important scales you should know. In fact, I think it's one of the only 8 scales that you need to know, that is the diminished scale. Now, what you can do is you can apply the darkest chord to the scale, right? So, again, the darkest chord is like this. And you apply that to the scale. So now on every other note, you play the same thing. So you move everything up in minor 3rd steps. Right? So that's the first one. And then you play the second note. And then. This sounds really dark and sounds very strange, but I promise that if you learn this, it's a cool effect to have if you want to play this kind of sound, which is a little bit dark. Now, let's speak about the diminished pattern, which is based on the diminished scale. So this one is where you, instead of playing it up and down, now you play it down a whole step, and up a 4th, and down a whole step, and up a 4th, and so on and so forth. As usual, whenever you learn a new element, try to apply it elsewhere. So this one you could play multiple places in this tune, and I would just play it once if it was a performance, but once I'm practicing, that's a different story, right? So now pretend that I'm practicing. I think I can add it here. That's it, and thank you for staying until the end. Around midnight, it can be dark, so applying a dark chord can be just what that tune needs. Don't forget to practice the various ideas you like. You can find the exercise by following the link below this video, and also subscribe for more specific helpful jazz piano tips, since I will be back around midnight 2 weeks from now. So until then, practice a lot and take care of your music.